Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that Shanice was never one to meddle for the sake of drama, but when it came to Derek and Ashley, her instincts told her silence would only lead to ruin. She had watched Derek long enough to see the subtle betrayals in his body language, the way he pretended weakness when his strength was slowly returning, the quiet flinch when Ashley's hands brushed his leg as if he feared she might discover the truth he had buried under months of hesitation. Shanice had pressed him before, half joking, half concerned, but now that Ashley had shocked everyone by proposing to him while his health still hung in the balance, Shanice felt urgency crackling in her veins. Derek could not keep this secret. Not now. Not when the stakes had shifted from quiet companionship to lifelong commitment. Derek, of course, had always been a complicated man. The accident that left him struggling to walk had not only taken his mobility but his pride. In Ashley, he had found a balm, a woman who saw his heart beyond the wheelchair, beyond the limp, beyond the constant cloud of frustration. She loved him fiercely, unconditionally, or so it seemed. Her career as a nurse made her intuitive, patient, endlessly nurturing, and he drank from that well of devotion like a man lost in the desert. But in doing so, he had chained himself to a lie. He had convinced her that recovery was stagnant, that his leg was unresponsive, that he remained broken in a way he was not. Shanice, sharper than he ever gave her credit for, had noticed the changes before even Derek admitted them to himself. The small flex in his ankle when he thought no one was looking. The faint twitch of muscles along his thigh when frustration drove him to test his limits. She had studied him like a hawk. She laughed bitterly. "You can't fool me, Derek. I've seen the truth in your body even if you try to deny it with words." He had crumbled under that scrutiny, shame flooding him, and finally confessed that the therapy was working. He wasn't fully healed, not yet, but the signs were there, undeniable. That confession had led to Shanice's warning, her words sharp as glass. "Ashley deserves to know. You keep her in the dark, and you're building a marriage on sand. Sooner or later, the tide will come in, and everything will wash away." But Derek resisted, torn between fear and love. Ashley's proposal had staggered him. He never thought she would bind her life to his when he believed himself permanently damaged. Her promise of commitment, spoken with tears glistening in her eyes and trembling hands holding his, had touched him so deeply that he had nodded yes without hesitation. The sheer relief of being wanted, chosen, cherished despite his condition had overwhelmed the nagging truth in the back of his mind. For once, he didn't want to be logical. He wanted to believe in miracles. Yet miracles often came with shadows. Now he found himself caught between the joy of Ashley's love and the dread of her discovering his deception. He feared her reaction, feared she would see his concealment not as humility or caution but as betrayal. And wasn't it betrayal? Shanice thought so. Shanice told him so again and again. Their latest conversation replayed in Derek's mind as he sat alone in his apartment. The engagement ring Ashley had slipped onto his finger glinting under the lamplight. Shanice had teased him, trying to lighten the mood after scolding him, telling him that maybe Ashley herself was better therapy than the official exercises. Her laugh had embarrassed him, warmed him, but also reminded him of how precarious his situation was. How long could he endure this double life? Lover in truth, patient in pretense? Ashley, blissfully unaware of the storm raging inside him, radiated happiness. She threw herself into wedding plans with the energy only a woman newly engaged could summon. She sketched out venues, menus, playlists, imagining the life they would build together. Every time Derek watched her excitement, guilt gnawed at him. Each smile she cast his way felt like both a gift and a dagger. He replayed moments of her devotion, the way she kissed his forehead when he struggled with pain, the way she held his hand as if her touch alone could steady his trembling. She had loved him even when he believed himself to be forever bound to the chair. And that was the paradox that tormented him. If she loved him at his weakest, why should he fear that she would stop loving him at his strongest? Why should healing be a betrayal? And yet, in Derek's mind, the lie was not about the healing itself but about the secrecy. He had let her comfort him with pity, let her see him as fragile, let her promise her life to a man she believed would never stand tall again. Shanice's voice rang in his head like a conscience. "Tell her now, before the truth finds its own way out. And Derek knew she was right. Ashley's training as a nurse meant she couldn't be fooled forever. Her hands knew the language of muscles, of blood flow, of nerves flickering back to life. Already, she lingered when she massaged his leg, frowning slightly at the tension that should not have been there if he were truly unresponsive. It was only a matter of time before her clinical eye caught the contradictions. And when that day came, her discovery would feel like betrayal, double from the body that revealed its secrets, the other from the man who had hidden them. Derek wrestled with scenarios in his mind. He imagined confessing, watching her face fall, hearing her whisper, "Why didn't you trust me?" He imagined her anger, her tears, her walking away. But he also imagined her forgiveness, her laughter, her relief that progress had come after all. He vacillated between doom and hope, unable to settle in either. Shanice, meanwhile, worried not just for Derek but for Ashley as well. She admired Ashley's dedication, the way she poured herself into caring for Derek without complaint, but she also feared the devastation that awaited her if Derek continued his silence. Shanice had seen too many relationships collapse under the weight of half-truths. She believed in honesty as the only medicine strong enough to heal the wounds of deception. Still, even Shanice's certainty had cracks. A small part of her envied Ashley, envied the way Derek looked at her with a devotion he had never turned on anyone else. That envy curdled into protectiveness, a determination not to let Ashley's love be tarnished by lies. She might tease Derek, might scold him, but beneath it all, she cared for both of them too deeply to stand by and watch the slow-motion disaster unfold. As days passed, tension threaded itself into every interaction. Derek flinched whenever Ashley touched his leg, worried she would feel the subtle strength returning. Ashley, sensing his discomfort, wondered if the pain was worsening. She asked him softly, tenderly, if something was wrong, if his therapy sessions were too taxing. Derek forced smiles, forced reassurances, burying the truth deeper. And yet, despite himself, moments of hope broke through. In the quiet hours when Ashley slept beside him, he would flex his ankle just to prove to himself it was real. He would imagine walking again, dancing with her at their wedding, lifting her in his arms. Those visions filled him with joy so intense it made his chest ache. But they also reminded him of the ticking clock, of the truth he could no longer suppress. The climax approached with inevitability. Ashley, intuitive as ever, began to ask sharper questions. Her nurse's mind, always observant, catalogued the subtle signs Derek thought he had concealed. She noticed the way his muscles seemed firmer, the way circulation had improved. She watched him carefully, connecting dots he desperately tried to scatter. And though she said nothing outright, Derek saw the questions flicker in her eyes. He knew time had run out. Either he would tell her, or she would find the truth herself. Ashley's questions grew sharper, though she softened them with her natural warmth. She would brush her fingers along Derek's thigh as if to comfort him, but her eyes studied every reaction. Derek, trained by months of hiding, tried to remain neutral, yet even he could not control the faint tightening of muscle beneath her touch. Ashley's silence was not ignorance, it was calculation. She waited, giving him the dignity of confession, hoping he would trust her enough to speak the truth before she uncovered it herself. Derek, however, was paralyzed not by injury but by fear. Each day he told himself he would choose the moment, sit Ashley down, and reveal the progress. Each day he failed. The ring on his finger felt heavier with every lie, as if the gold itself judged him. The irony that love, which had once saved him, now trapped him in deceit, gnawed at his conscience. Shanice grew restless watching this slow collapse. Her patience for Derek's dithering evaporated. She confronted him in the park one afternoon, her voice low but laced with anger. "You think she can't see it? You think a nursey or fiancé doesn't know her own field? She knows something's changed, Derek. She's giving you time to step up. If you don't, she'll lose respect for you, not because of the healing, but because of your cowardice." Derek snapped back, frustration boiling over. "You don't understand what it's like to be loved when you thought you were broken. To have someone promise forever when you believed no one would ever stay. If I tell her now, she'll think I tricked her into pitying me." Shanice's eyes softened, But her words stayed firm. She doesn't love you out of pity. She loves you because of who you are. But if you keep lying, that's all she'll see. The man who didn't trust her enough to tell the truth. The confrontation left Derek shaken. Shanice's words lingered long after she walked away, echoing in his mind whenever Ashley smiled at him. He wanted to believe her love could survive the truth. He wanted to believe his fear was smaller than their bond. But belief was fragile, and doubt screamed louder than hope. Ashley, meanwhile, planned their engagement party. She threw herself into it with the joy of someone who had found her soulmate despite impossible odds. Friends and family were invited. The celebration promised to be intimate yet unforgettable. Derek played along, forcing smiles, helping her choose menus, nodding when she showed him floral arrangements. Yet with every decision, his stomach churned. The party became a deadline looming over him. He knew he had to speak before then. To let Ashley declare her love publicly while he concealed the truth would be unforgivable. The night before the celebration, Derek sat in silence, staring at the walls as Ashley slept peacefully beside him. He flexed his foot slowly under the blanket, the movement a reminder of progress he could no longer deny. He whispered into the dark, words he wished were strong enough to reach her dreams. "I'm sorry, I'll tell you tomorrow." But fate rarely bows to promises made in the dark. At the party, Ashley's warmth lit up the room. She moved gracefully among guests, her laughter ringing out, her hand finding Derek's often as if to reassure him that he was her anchor. Derek, however, struggled to focus on anything but the weight pressing against his chest. Shanice attended, her eyes watchful, silently urging him to act. When she caught his gaze across the room, she gave a tiny nod, a signal that the moment had come. Derek excused himself and pulled Ashley aside. His heart pounded so violently he thought she must hear it. They stepped into the quiet of the garden, fairy lights casting a soft glow around them. Ashley's eyes shone with happiness, but beneath that joy Derek thought he glimpsed curiosity, maybe even expectation. "I need to tell you something," Derek began, his voice trembling. "Something I should have said weeks ago." Ashley squeezed his hand gently. "Go on." He drew a deep breath, forcing the words past the knot in his throat. "My leg. It's not the same as it was. There's been progress. I can feel more. I can move more. I didn't tell you because when you asked me to marry you, I thought you were choosing me as I was, broken. I was scared that if I told you I was getting better, you'd think I'd tricked you, that I let you love a lie." The silence that followed stretched unbearably. Ashley's face revealed nothing at first, her eyes searched his as if peeling back every layer of his soul. Then, slowly, she released his hand. "Derek," she whispered, "do you really believe my love for you is that shallow? That I would only want you if you were weak? That I couldn't handle the truth of you healing?" He opened his mouth, but no words came. Her voice grew stronger, though tinged with hurt. "I'm a nurse. I've touched your body every day. I've seen the signs. I was waiting for you to trust me enough to tell me. But you didn't. You let me go on, planning our future, while you hid behind lies." Derek's chest tightened. "I didn't want to lose you." Tears welled in Ashley's eyes, though her posture remained firm. "You almost did. Not because you healed, but because you didn't believe in me. Love without trust isn't love, Derek. It's fear." He reached for her hand again, desperation raw in his voice. "Please, forgive me. I was wrong. I see that now. I was a coward, and you deserve better. But I love you, Ashley. I love you more than I can explain." Ashley hesitated. Her eyes softened with the memory of everything they had shared: late-night talks, the comfort in grief, the laughter despite pain. She loved him, there was no denying that. But the wound of his secrecy was fresh, and healing it would take time. Shanice, watching from a distance, saw Ashley wipe her tears and lean into Derek's embrace. Relief washed over her, though she knew the journey ahead for them would not be easy. This was not the kind of conflict resolved in one night, it was the kind that left scars, reminders of what honesty could preserve and what lies could nearly destroy. In the days that followed, Ashley pulled back slightly, not with anger but with caution. She still loved Derek, but she demanded transparency moving forward. She asked more questions, expected fuller answers, and Derek, humbled by the near loss, gave them without hesitation. Slowly, They rebuilt the trust that had cracked. Their love became quieter, steadier, forged in the fire of almost collapse. Shanice remained close, still protective, though she let Derek and Ashley carve their own path. She teased him less now, recognizing the fragility of their healing bond, but her presence reminded him of the accountability he needed. For Derek, the greatest shift was internal. He realized his worth had never been tied to his injury, nor his healing. Ashley had loved him through both, but the truth was that he had never loved himself enough to believe her. Now, with each step forward in therapy, he didn't just rebuild his body, he rebuilt the courage to be honest, to trust in love's resilience. And Ashley, though still hurt, found new depth in her devotion. She recognized that Derek's secrecy had come not from malice but from fear, and while fear had nearly broken them, it had also revealed the depth of his vulnerability. She vowed to hold him accountable, but also to walk beside him as he learned to stand without shame. Together, they chose not to rush to the altar. The engagement remained, but the wedding was postponed not as a punishment, but as a gift of time. Time to grow, time to heal, time to learn what true partnership demanded. In the quiet of their shared home, as Derek practiced walking small steps with Ashley's steady hand nearby, both knew the hardest battles were behind them. And though more challenges would come, they had faced the first great test of their love. They had survived the danger of secrets. Now, at last, they could begin again on the solid ground of truth. The weeks after the engagement party tested Derek and Ashley in ways neither of them could have predicted. The truth had cracked their bond, but it had not broken it, and in that fragile space between forgiveness and doubt, both were forced to confront not only each other but themselves. Derek, once defined by the silence of his fear, found himself relearning what honesty looked like in practice. Ashley, who had spent years reading bodies and ailments as a nurse, had to retrain her heart to trust words that had once been withheld. Shanice remained a quiet but crucial presence. She checked in often, not to pry but to remind Derek of the line he had crossed and the one he could never cross again. Sometimes her words were gentle encouragements, other times they were sharp nudges meant to jolt him back into awareness. "You've got a second chance," she told him one afternoon as they walked together after a therapy session. "Don't waste it. People don't forgive the same lie twice." Derek nodded, humbled, knowing she was right. Therapy became a metaphor for his relationship. Every step forward required balance, patience, and resilience. He stumbled, faltered, and sometimes cursed at the frustration, but Ashley's presence grounded him. She stopped being just his nurse or fiancée. She became his partner in every sense, someone who demanded honesty not as a punishment but as a condition for love. Her watchful eyes were no longer searching for lies but encouraging progress. Yet trust, once fractured, never heals overnight. Ashley's laughter was genuine again, but sometimes it carried a hesitation, as if a shadow lingered at the edge of her joy. Derek noticed, and it cut him deeper than any physical pain. He wanted to erase that shadow, to prove he could be worthy of her without the crutch of deception. He began planning something that could give them both closure, a small ceremony, not the grand wedding Ashley had once envisioned, but an intimate promise between two people who had already faced their darkest truth. He didn't tell her at first. Instead, he confided in Shanice, who raised an eyebrow at the irony of Derek planning another surprise. "You sure surprises are your thing?" she asked dryly. "This one's different," Derek insisted. "It's not about hiding. It's about showing her I've learned. It's not an escape, it's a promise." For once, Shanice smiled without reservation. "Then make it count. And this time, don't wait until it's too late." Derek poured himself into preparations. He chose a quiet garden, one filled with soft lights and blooming flowers, reminiscent of the night he had first confessed the truth. He invited only Shanice as witness, not because Ashley had no one else, but because Shanice had been the catalyst, the voice of conscience that had carried them to this point. He arranged everything not as a spectacle but as a statement, that love, stripped of lies, was enough. When the night came, Derek asked Ashley to join him under the pretense of a simple walk. She followed without suspicion, her hand slipping naturally into his. They reached the garden, where candles flickered along the path, and Ashley's eyes widened in surprise. "Derek," she whispered, her voice trembling with wonder. "What is this?" He took her hands, steady despite the storm of nerves inside him. "It's a chance to start again. To promise you the way I should have from the beginning honestly. No more secrets. No more fear. Just us, as we are." Ashley's eyes glistened, tears reflecting the soft light. "You don't need to do this to prove anything. You've already shown me every day since that night how you want to be better." "I know," Derek replied, his voice breaking. "But I need to do this for you, for me, for us. Because I can't let the memory of my lie be the story of our love. I want this truth to be our foundation." Shanice stepped forward quietly, holding out two simple bands Derek had chosen. Ashley gasped, covering her mouth as realization sank in. It wasn't a wedding in the traditional sense, but it was a vow, binding and sacred in its intimacy. As Derek slid the band onto Ashley's finger, his words were steady. "I promise to trust you with everything I am. No more hiding, no more fear. You're my truth, Ashley. My only truth." Ashley, tears streaming freely, returned the vow as she placed the band on his hand. "I promise to love you not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. I promise to demand honesty, and to give it." "You're not broken, Derek. You never were. You're mine." The embrace that followed was not the passion of new love but the strength of love tested, battered, and proven resilient. Shanice, standing nearby, smiled quietly, satisfied that the couple had finally crossed the threshold she had pushed them toward. In the weeks that followed, Derek's progress in therapy accelerated, as if honesty itself had freed his body. Each step he took beside Ashley became symbolic, a declaration that he no longer needed lies to lean on. Ashley, though still cautious, let her guard down more with each passing day, recognizing that his vulnerability had grown into true strength. Shanice drifted back into the background, her mission complete, but she carried the satisfaction of knowing she had prevented a love worth saving from crumbling under secrecy. She remained part of their lives, the loyal friend and silent guardian, but she no longer needed to scold or warn. Her job was done. Derek and Ashley did not rush to a wedding, nor did they need to. The small ceremony in the garden was enough for Nova reminder that sometimes the grandest promises are made not in front of hundreds, but in front of the one person who mattered most, and the friend who demanded the truth be spoken. Their story was not perfect, nor was it free of struggle, but it was real, and in the end, that was stronger than any illusion, pity or lies could have built. As Derek took his first unassisted steps across the living room weeks later, Ashley watching with tears of joy, both knew that this was their true beginning. Not the night of the proposal, not the night of the confession, but on the solid ground of trust, love, and the courage to face the future together. And in that moment, with Shanice clapping from the doorway and Ashley's hand pressed to her lips in awe, Derek smiled, not with fear, not with guilt, but with the peace of a man finally free.